A sharp blade is feared, not because it cuts, but because it reminds the dull knives of their own uselessness. Welcome, chosen one. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to disrupt, to unsettle, to remind people of everything they lack. Your mind is a weapon, and the world despises what it cannot control. The average person isn't just comfortable with mediocrity. They defend it like a religion. The weak fear what outshines them, and your refusal to dim your light is their biggest nightmare. You don't have to attack them. Your existence alone is an act of war. They want you to water yourself down, to reduce your brilliance to something digestible for the simple-minded. But why should a lion pretend to be a house cat just because the mice feel threatened? Before we go deeper, hit like and subscribe. Every time you engage, you push this message further into the algorithm, signaling to YouTube that more chosen ones need to wake up. The more of us who see this, the stronger we become. Now, let's talk about the power they fear. The power you carry. You are a walking reminder of everything they'll never be. Your intelligence, your depth, your refusal to participate in meaningless chatter, it haunts them. It exposes their emptiness. They say you're arrogant, cold, too much. But what they really mean is that you don't need their validation, and that makes you dangerous. The truth is, the world is getting dumber. Studies prove it. The reverse Flynn effect shows IQ levels are dropping. Society isn't just dumbing down, it's celebrating it. The less you think, the more you belong, and that's exactly why they despise you. You don't just refuse to join the herd, you make them realize they're cattle. When you enter a room, the energy shifts. They can't explain it, but they feel it. Your presence alone forces people to confront their own lack of depth. It's why they try to isolate you, tear you down, and make you question yourself. They don't want you to see your power. They want you to believe that being different is a curse, not the gift that it is. You've probably felt it. Conversations that drain you, interactions that leave you hollow, social circles where no one is saying anything of real substance. You're not crazy for wanting more. They've been conditioned to settle for less. You speak in full thoughts, they reply in recycled phrases. You question reality, they defend their illusions. You move with purpose, they drift with the tide. And because of that, you terrify them. They want compliance, not intellect. They want comfort, not truth. But you were built differently. The universe chose you to break the cycle, not become part of it, and that's why your very existence pisses them off. So let them talk, let them whisper, let them call you too much while they remain not enough. A wolf never loses sleep over the opinions of sheep. Your path is clear. Never shrink yourself for those who refuse to grow. And thank you. Yes, you, the chosen one. Your presence here is no coincidence. Whether this is your first time or you've been walking this path with us for a while, know this. You are part of something unstoppable. If you're ready to own your truth, embrace your power, and watch them choke on the reality of who you've always been, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop 77 in the comments to mark this moment. And now, let's get into it step by step. Because believe me, if you are a true chosen one, you will feel the pull to stay till the very end. Let's begin. Number 1. They weren't ready for the truth, so they called it arrogance. A mind that sees through the illusion is a threat to those still trapped in it. The truth is, they never hated your intelligence. They hated what it revealed about them. They hated the mirror you unknowingly held up to their faces, the reflection of their own limitations, their intellectual laziness, their dependence on pre-packaged opinions. You never had to call them weak. They felt it the moment you spoke, and that's why they resent you. Most people don't seek intelligence, they seek comfort. They want predictable conversations, recycled opinions, and easy validation. They want to stay where they are, wrapped in the illusion that they know enough, that they figured it all out. The moment you challenge that illusion, you become the enemy. Not because you're wrong, but because you force them to think. And thinking requires effort. An effort most people aren't willing to make. You see, when you refuse to dumb yourself down, you're not just being different. You're breaking a sacred rule. The rule that says, don't make me feel stupid. The rule that says, pretend along with us. The rule that says, be smaller so we can feel bigger. They want your intelligence as long as it entertains them. But the moment it forces them to confront their own inadequacy, they flip the script. They call you arrogant, cold, difficult. Not because you are, but because it's easier to label you than it is to level up. But here's the real reason they fear you. You are proof that they could be more. And that fact eats them alive. Because if you exist, if someone like you can think, evolve, and refuse to settle, then what's their excuse? If intelligence, awareness, and depth are possible, then their lack of it is a choice. And that realization, that terrifies them. It forces them to acknowledge the corners of their mind they've neglected, the truths they've ignored, and the ways they've let themselves decay. So instead of facing that reality, they take the easy way out. They turn you into the villain. You've seen it before. The subtle shifts in tone when you speak, the fake laughs, the passive-aggressive comments, the sudden shift in energy when your presence disrupts the status quo. At first, they tolerate you, maybe even admire you. But as soon as they realize you won't lower yourself to their level, admiration turns to hostility. Because you're no longer just someone with a sharp mind, you're a threat to their delusion. And that's when they start playing dirty. They isolate you, mock you, label you too much. Not because they want you gone, but because they need to believe that your depth is a flaw. That way, they don't have to face the uncomfortable truth. They were capable of more, but they chose less. But here's where they miscalculated. The universe never aligns itself with mediocrity. It aligns with those who seek truth, who refuse to shrink, who demand more from themselves and the world around them. And that's why, no matter how much they try to bury you, the universe keeps pulling you forward. They thought they could erase you, but all they did was highlight you. You're not here to be understood by them. You're here to outgrow them, to force them to watch as you rise while they remain shackled to their self-imposed limitations. You were never meant to fit in. You were meant to disrupt. And the very thing they despise about you, that's exactly what makes you unstoppable. So, let them call you arrogant. Let them misunderstand you. Let them mock what they cannot comprehend. Because the truth is, the more they resist you, the stronger you become. And by the time they realize their mistake, it'll be too late. You'll be too far ahead for them to catch up. Number 2. They call it socializing. You call it a waste of breath. The emptier the mind, the louder the mouth. They say you're antisocial. They say you're awkward, distant, uninterested. But what they really mean is you refuse to participate in their meaningless rituals. Most people don't talk to connect. They talk to belong. Words aren't used to exchange ideas. They're used to keep up an illusion, a script, a performance where everyone plays their part, nods on cue, laughs at the right moments, and pretends that conversations built on cliches and empty phrases actually mean something. How are you? They don't want an answer. Crazy weather, huh? They don't care. Did you see the game last night? They don't even remember half of it. None of it is real. It's verbal filler, a desperate attempt to avoid silence, because silence forces people to think. And most people don't want that responsibility. But then, you walk in, and you don't play along. You don't nod mindlessly. You don't pretend to be entertained by recycled jokes. You don't waste your breath on shallow observations that lead nowhere. And that's when the shift happens. They notice you, and they don't like what they see, because your presence is a reminder that most conversations are meaningless, that they're just talking to hear themselves talk, that they have nothing of substance to say. But they say it anyway, because silence terrifies them. And instead of questioning themselves, they blame you. They say you're the problem, that you don't get socializing, that you're too serious, too intense, too different. But what they really mean is you don't need the illusion to feel comfortable. Because, let's be honest, when was the last time someone actually said something worth listening to? Most conversations are verbal junk food, empty calories, no nutrition, a sugar rush of social validation, quickly followed by the crash of realizing nothing important was said. And yet they expect you to indulge in it, to fake a smile, to pretend you care, to force yourself into a mold that was never meant for you. But why should you? Why should you lower your frequency just to match their static? Why should you waste energy on words that carry no weight? Why should you dim your depth just because they're afraid of drowning? The truth is, your silence isn't rudeness, it's rebellion. It's a refusal to be pulled into their empty rituals. It's a declaration that your energy is too valuable to be spent on conversations that go nowhere. And that terrifies them, because when you don't play along, you break the illusion. You remind them that their words mean nothing, that their conversations are just a distraction from the emptiness they refuse to face. And deep down, they know you're right. But instead of rising to meet you, they take the easy way out. They resent you. They'll say you're arrogant, that you think you're better than them, that you're too quiet, because they need a reason, any reason, to explain why your presence makes them uncomfortable. And blaming you is easier than admitting the truth. They are afraid of depth, afraid of real conversations, afraid of facing themselves. And you make them see that. That's why they'll never understand you. That's why they'll never accept you. Because you don't talk just to talk. You don't seek validation through meaningless chatter. You don't waste words, and that makes them nervous. Because they know everything they say around you will be weighed, measured, and found lacking. So, let them talk. Let them fill the silence with empty words. Let them convince themselves that they're the normal ones, and you're the strange one. It doesn't matter, because the truth is, when you finally do speak, they all shut up. Number 3, they hate you not because you're wrong, but because you're right. A weak mind is only at peace when surrounded by weaker minds. You never had to say a word. You never had to claim superiority. You never had to rub your intelligence in anyone's face. Yet somehow your existence alone is enough to set them off, because deep down they know. They know they've been coasting through life on mental autopilot. They know their opinions aren't really their own, just borrowed ideas regurgitated from headlines, influencers, and whatever the loudest voice in the room says. They know they haven't questioned anything deeply in years, maybe ever, and then you show up. You don't just accept things at face value. You don't mindlessly repeat what you're told. You ask questions that demand real answers. You see through their contradictions, their lazy arguments, their half-baked philosophies. And the worst part, you don't even have to try. Your presence alone forces them to recognize something they've been running from. They could be sharper, wiser, more self-aware, but they've chosen not to be. And that reality, that stings. So, instead of rising to meet the challenge, instead of sharpening their own minds, they take the easier route, resenting you. They label you as too much. They call you difficult. They act as if your curiosity is offensive, as if your critical thinking is an attack. Not because you're actually attacking them, but because in a way you are. You're disrupting the fragile comfort they've built around themselves. Because here's the truth. Most people aren't looking for knowledge, they're looking for validation. They don't want to be challenged. They don't want to be forced to think harder. They want confirmation that they're already right, that they already know enough, that their worldview is solid and unshakable. And then, you come along asking why instead of just nodding. You come along questioning what they've blindly accepted. You come along making them aware of just how lazy their thinking has been. And it infuriates them, because in that moment they're forced to realize that intelligence is a choice. Growth is a choice. Depth is a choice. And if you exist, if someone like you can think, analyze, evolve, then what's their excuse? They don't have one. And that's why they'd rather drag you down than rise to your level. It's easier to attack you than to confront themselves. It's easier to resent you than to admit they've been lazy. It's easier to call you arrogant than to acknowledge their own ignorance. And they will fight to keep that illusion intact. You've seen it before. The way people get defensive when you challenge their beliefs. The way they mock what they don't understand. The way they pretend you're the problem because the alternative, that they've been wrong this whole time, is too much for them to handle. But here's what they don't realize. The universe does not reward mental laziness. You weren't built to blend in with them. You weren't built to shrink yourself for their comfort. You were built to see through the noise, to question, to evolve. And the very fact that they fear you proves how powerful that is. So, let them talk. Let them dismiss you. Let them pretend you're the issue. Because while they stay stuck in the same tired loops, recycling the same thoughts, defending the same hollow opinions, you keep growing. And by the time they finally realize their mistake, it won't matter. You'll be too far ahead for them to catch up. Number 4, they don't despise you, They despise what you make them see. A dull blade blames the sharp one for its own inability to cut. They don't actually hate you. They hate the way your presence makes them feel. You walk into a room and suddenly they're aware of their shortcomings, their untapped potential, their wasted time. You don't have to say a word. You don't have to criticize. Just being you is enough to activate something they've spent their whole lives suppressing. The realization that they could have been more, but instead of facing that truth, they do what weak minds always do. They reject the mirror. They twist reality to make themselves the victim and you the villain. They label you arrogant, difficult, out of touch. Not because it's true, but because it's the easiest way to deal with the discomfort you bring. Accepting that you earned your intelligence, your insight, your depth, that would mean accepting that they chose to remain stagnant. And that's a truth they'll do anything to avoid. You see, most people live their lives avoiding self-awareness. They don't want to reflect, analyze, or question themselves. They don't want to confront the fact that they've been playing small, following the herd, choosing convenience over growth. And when you come along, unapologetic, sharp, unwilling to shrink, they're forced to acknowledge a reality they despise. They had the same 24 hours as you, the same access to books, to knowledge, to self-improvement, the same potential to be more, and they wasted it. So what do? They attack, they gossip, they downplay your intelligence, call you nerdy, weird, too intense. They mock what they don't understand because ridicule is easier than reflection. It's a defense mechanism, not a rational decision, not a conscious plan, just pure gut-level survival. They feel like prey in the presence of a predator, not because you're hunting them, but because your existence reminds them of their own weakness. And weak people will do anything to protect their delusions. But here's the truth. Chosen one, they don't matter. You are not here to be understood by those who refuse to understand themselves. You are not here to dim your light so they can feel comfortable in the dark. The universe didn't align itself in your favor just so you could waste time convincing small minds to think bigger. Let them misunderstand you. Let them call you whatever helps them sleep at night, because at the end of the day, their words won't change reality. They can tell themselves you're too much, but that won't make them whole. They can mock your depth, but that won't fill their emptiness. They can reject the mirror, but they'll always know deep down that you were never the problem. The only difference between you and them is that you had the courage to face yourself, to see your flaws, your weaknesses, your blind spots, and do something about them while they chose to look away. That's why your presence makes them uneasy. That's why they push you away. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because you did something they refused to do. You chose growth over comfort. You chose truth over delusion. You chose power over fear, and that will always make the weak uncomfortable. So let them talk, let them project, let them twist reality to protect themselves. It changes nothing because at the end of the day, you don't need their approval. They need your absence. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to stand out and rise. If you feel this, if you know this, hit like, subscribe, and drop 77 in the comments. Share this message.